Hello to all of you that are listening. Some of them are in the evening, some in the morning, and some very early in the morning on the West Coast. It's very interesting subject of the Diamond Sutra. One that the reason that I picked this was because I, in particular, wanted to hear somebody speak about the Diamond Sutra. Now I know why very few people speak about the Diamond Sutra, because it cannot be spoken about. I was trying to figure out what was the best way to open up this lecture series. And as I was working on it, I spent quite a bit of time just simply working on background information and working on the title and thinking we cannot get into the body of the Diamond Sutra until such time as we prepare for it, a foundation. And immediately before the lecture, I thought about this a little bit more and was going to immerse you completely into the Diamond Sutra to see how well equipped you are to understand or fathom the meaning of the Diamond Sutra. So that's what I'm going to do. I completely switched my presentation at this moment, and I want to give you a taste of the Diamond Sutra. This is from the chapter 5 of the Diamond Sutra, a little tiny bit of Dharma here. And when the Buddha is speaking of these material characteristics, that's just saying, is he known by, excuse me, by 32 marks? Is he known by things? And so can you recognize the Buddha from these conceptual approach? And so it goes this way. It's a very small chapter, and it's calling understanding the ultimate principle of reality. And which is kind of a misnomer because it cannot be understood in this manner. Subhuti, what do you think? Is the Tathagata to be recognized by some material characteristic? No, world-honored one, the Tathagata cannot be recognized by any material characteristic. Wherefore, because the Tathagata has said that material characteristics are not in fact material characteristics, the Buddha said, Subhuti, wheresoever are material characteristics, there is delusion. But who perceives all the characteristics are in fact no characteristics, perceives the Tathagata. Now, this is clear to all of you, right? This is the Diamond Sutra. Welcome to the Diamond Sutra. This is not something that is fathomable, understood by words and phrases. And it speaks in this way. We will get into this style of negation later on, but I wanted to give you a taste of it so that you say, well, wait a second, this is not like a regular sutra. This one, it speaks in circles. How can I possibly understand this? And that is the point, is that it is this never-ending Rubik's Cube, a puzzle that cannot be solved ever, 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 ever. You cannot solve it. So why do we study it? To find out that you can never solve it. It is in a language, I shouldn't say language, it is in a means of communication that we refer to as esoteric. The Buddha is speaking, for those of Chinese, and forgive me for my butchering of Mandarin, is This is full mi jiao. It is the esoteric. And so we need to go back to school to learn this esoteric. And it cannot be learned by words and phrases. The puzzle of the Diamond Sutra is very, very incredible, but it is the most powerful of the sutras because it never lets up. And it's a small sutra, a very, very small sutra. It predates the Prajnaparamita Sutras, in the fact that it is the Buddha that is speaking to Subhuti, and we'll talk about Subhuti and where he comes from in a bit. Because in the later Prajnaparamita Sutras, it is Subhuti who is speaking on behalf of the Buddha, presumably what he learned from the Diamond Sutra, or I shouldn't say learned, but has realized from the Diamond Sutra. So you see, it's very, very difficult to talk about the Diamond Sutra because it isn't something that we can say has any characteristics at all. It is not very easy. And I wanted to give you a forward from the Diamond Sutra from Red Pine's Diamond Sutra book. He's a very accomplished master that translated the Diamond Sutra, and he had a very difficult time. And he also had read it before many, many times before really a self-absorption had happened. And his preface to his translation is this: the Diamond Sutra may look like a book, but it's really the body of the Buddha. It's also your body, my body, all possible bodies, but it's the body with nothing inside, nothing outside. It doesn't exist in space or time, nor is it a construct of mind. It's no mind. And yet, because it's no mind, it has room for compassion. This book is an offering of no mind, born of compassion for all suffering beings. Of all the sutras that teach this, this is the diamond. It cuts through all delusions, illuminates what is real and cannot be destroyed. It is the path on which all Buddhas stand and walk. And to read it is to stand and walk with the Buddhas. So today, we are using our Buddha mind to realize our own intrinsic Buddha nature. Those were very, very powerful words by Red Pine. And as well, I wanted to read you an excerpt of Hui Ning, because Hui Ning was very interesting. In his Platform Sutra, the very first chapter of the Platform Sutra has to do with his realizations from the Diamond Sutra. And he wrote this: countless are those who have read the sutra, and numberless are those who have praised it. More than 800 have written commentaries to it. So that's back quite a long time ago, maybe 1,300 years ago. And there's already 800 commentaries on it. And each has explained its meaning according to his own perspective. But though perspectives differ, the Dharma is one and the same. This sutra is present in the nature of all beings. Those who don't look within read only words, while those who become aware of their own minds realize the sutra does not consist of words. So it is with this approach that we begin our studies of the Diamond Sutra. I know many of you have read the Diamond Sutra, and if I could see a show of hands, you can press your button like as if you want to speak. How many of you have read the Diamond Sutra? Just so I can see that. If you press your button. All right, see a few. Hold on. Okay. And I'm watching you, so if make sure that you guys do that. All right. Thank you. And because this, if we have a large group, it's just the best way. Okay. So it seems like about half of you have read the Diamond Sutra. And let's try this now. How many of you that have read the Diamond Sutra understand the Diamond Sutra? Let me see a show of hands that understand it. I see Kitty dropped off. Okay. Yeah. Interesting, huh? We have Santha says she understands it. All right, Wendy. Okay. Thank you very much for participating, because it gives me a chance and gives other people a chance to see where we're at with this. It's a very perplexing, on purpose perplexing sutra. In fact, it's so perplexing that last night I could not sleep. I simply had the sutra on my mind, and it was replaying and playing and playing certain parts, saying, Gilbert, do you understand this? No. And it just keeps replaying and replaying there, like some kind of a huato. This is like a meditation method where you put your mind before the thought arises. And so for me to begin to talk about the sutra, this was probably the best way to say, if you do not know that it is not material characteristics, but yet that's why we speak of characteristics. Well, who's speaking? Who is this? You know, it's not Gilbert. It's not those that are listening right now. Someone is speaking. So we begin here. We can begin with the name, which is very interesting. It is known as the Vajracchedika Prajna Paramita Sutra. In Chinese, again, forgive me for my pronunciation, it's the Chi Gong Bore Polamido Jing, or the Jinggang Jing Sutra. What's very interesting is this term Vajra, and which is a kind of like an ancient weapon that was used. And it later became very, very stylized. Sometimes this sutra is also known as the thunderbolt that cuts through illusions. But primarily, we talk about this as a Vajra. And in this, this is a Vajra here. And one thing that we see is there's no diamond in it. In fact, in the Sanskrit name, diamond does not appear anywhere in there. it is just simply the notion that that there is this weapon that cuts through all of the illusion. The Chidika means to cut. So Vajra is this weapon that we use to cut through the illusion to manifest this Prajna Paramita. Now, the Prajna Paramita aspect of this is this deep wisdom, kind of what we call unexcelled wisdom, and we'll get back to that in a moment. The Vajra then stylistically was looking like this, which was some kind of a weapon, and kind of between a mace and sharp ends on it. This one is more stylized, so it no longer has the sharp ends on it. But it in the Tibetan, they refer to it as the dorji. You will see this oftentimes being held by a bodhisattva or in one of the arms, particularly Kuan Yin. And so you see this kind of a dorji or vajra, and later it was stylized to look like this, what they call the double vajra. And so this is the weapon that's used to cut through the illusion. And so in this way, it is held with great respect for what it represents, that it has this ability to do this. Diamond comes up because to human existence, the diamond is perceived to be the hardest material that can cut through any other material. And so with that, it is used to symbolize not only that one is cutting through illusion, but this diamond itself, if one is to look into it, has no form. If one looks through one facet, what one sees is the world perfectly reflected in it. And it is seen as not having any limitation to its body, as it's reflecting everything. And this is kind of the reason that a diamond is used here, because it symbolizes as a good analogy what is happening in terms of the of what the sutra wants to represent. The Prajna Paramita aspect of the sutras is also important because this was a quantum shift in Buddha doctrine from the original reliance on the Nikayas and what was presented there into the Prajna Paramita Sutras. And the Prajna Paramita Sutras are known, many of the sutras, such as the Lotus Sutra, the Flower Adornment Sutra, Diamond Sutra, Heart Sutra, is what's called Vyapula. Now, you might have heard that, or you might have said it in some service, and you hear the word Vyapula. But Vyapula is a very important word, because when you read a Vyapula Sutra, a Mahayana Sutra, irregardless of its presentation, it is presented, and in its presentation incorporates all of Buddha mind. It's intrinsically correct. And thank you, Angela, for putting that down. Vyapula. And so this, whatever sutra it is correct. If one was to study the Lotus Sutra, that would be sufficient, or the Flower Adornment Sutra, Huayan Jing, you could get there easily. The Diamond Sutra as well. Here, the Diamond Sutra, I would say, is really at the top of the Vyapula Sutras. The Heart That's the Heart Sutra. The Heart Sutra with Prajnaparamita. And in the Prajnaparamita, what we have is the Heart Sutra espousing this deep perfected wisdom. And the perfected wisdom is Anyatara Samyak Sambodhi. So you see this at the end of the sutra, and it's just one of those words that's hard for you to recite, whether you're reciting it. How do you recite it in Chinese? The same way? Anybody? Anyatara Samyak Sambodhi. So in any case, this is this highest perfected wisdom, so high of a perfected wisdom that in fact, there is no longer even anything to call wisdom. It is the suchness of the mind. And in this way, and what's really important, and I think what Red Pine had touched upon, was that, as he said, it's no mind, and yet because it's no mind, it has room for compassion. This is the great esoteric aspect of our practice, because our practice is not simply a negation of characteristics or material things. It is a touching by the suchness of the mind of the Tathagata, that within the Tathagata Garbha, the Buddha womb, that there is perceived not by the perception of the five skandha, form, sensation, perception, volition, and consciousness, but the mind's own perception, the true perception, that there is a suffering that is arising in mind. And the natural course is one that we see it in this way. We see it very, very clearly. We understand that what is suffering is an illusory sentient being, but nevertheless, the suffering is there. And it's something as if your body had an itch, and there's nothing there to really scratch, but you scratch it just to take it away, because there's a sensation within the body that there's something that is uncomfortable in the body. It may be only on your arm, but you want to scratch it. Why? Because the rest of the body cares about it. It is in this way as we see it. And I want to show you how this all works. It's very funny because yesterday I was texting one of my students and was trying to explain the practice to her in a way using an analogy, saying that suppose that you spilled a jar of beans, and so the beans spread out on the floor. Each of those beans may feel that they're not connected with the whole, but they are connected, and they each maintain the same intrinsic nature to them, that they're a being. But because they're separated by cause and conditions, dropping the bowl or the jar, they're now scattered. But we begin to gather them up and put them back in their rightful place, and seeing clearly and contacting with each other. These beings then have come to the realization they're all part of the collective whole, which is not a one, it just is. There's a suchness there that we look beyond it. We don't have to call a being for a being to be a being. It is intrinsically within it. And in all material characteristics of things, there is still within it the intrinsic nature of mind. So how does this work? Why am I talking about this? Because that very day, right before I did that, that student had dropped a jar of beans on the floor. And she sent me a picture of it. The mind works in a very interesting way. Gilbert, he did not know that before he texted that to her, but it was just in this way that that the mind works in the esoteric. And so the impact of that on her was tremendous in terms of how is that? It is just the suchness of mind, just the compassion of mind to sense that there is an unease or a dis-ease in mind, and wants to rectify it and see the things clearly. So it just naturally communicates in this way. This is not from the samsaric side. It is from the esoteric side of mind itself. So we continue on. The main principles that are being presented by the Diamond Sutra are the principles of sunyata, which is emptiness, and anatman, which is no self. There's also the aspect, again, of the unbridled compassion that arises in the mind as well. The sunyata, this emptiness, is one that, do you understand what emptiness is? How many of you, let me see a show of hands, can say that they truly know what emptiness is? So if you know what emptiness is, put your hand up. There's a few brave souls. Wendy, what is emptiness? If you can unmute her. I don't see your picture, but I see your hand up, unless you left it up from the last time.
It's
You
no
should be
self,
able to mute that. Yeah, okay.
and we won't insist of any of our thought, our mindset.
No self, then what is thinking?
There is a thinking, but it's just come out, but we don't insist of it.
Okay. Santa, what is emptiness?
Emptiness is what enables phenomena to appear, to abide, and to go away.
Hello.
Are
Gilbert?
you? Yes.
Gilbert, this is Wendy.
Okay, Wendy, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I didn't answer your number one is because I was using my iPad, but my iPad Wi-Fi got disconnected. I was fixing it. And then now just about to fix it. So I will go back on. So I'm working on my iPad, so I didn't answer you. I'm sorry, I'm, my 1 year is listen to you, 1 year is play with my iPad right this moment. Sorry. Okay, I'm in it. Okay.
So do you want to answer the question or pass it on?
Yeah. I tried to come back, and I don't know why my voice, you see, this one is not working either. Okay, I try it. Okay, bye.
All right. So,
okay.
So Santa, do you feel comfortable in your answer?
in as much as an answer can, language cannot express emptiness. Emptiness is, and but we do have to use language.
So how do we capture, define emptiness? Is this like empty here, or is this empty? And I have to forgive me, because this early in the morning I have sun coming in from my windows on the side, so it's kind of I don't have a shade, so there, so you'll only see half of me, like a half moon. And in any case, this is not something that's easy to define what emptiness is. But emptiness, in the manner in which we use in terms of words, such as Santa was saying, we nevertheless have to try to work with the words. Even though the Diamond Sutra is beyond words and phrases, nevertheless, we have to work with them. And this emptiness is the opposite of what emptiness is, as in the terms that we think about it, because we think of emptiness like an empty container. But if you see, this container is full, but yet empty. And it is not that everything is empty as much as everything is just like the beans in the jar, that because they're all the same, they all have the same characteristics, the same intrinsic nature, that they are not real, because you cannot pick out one bean and say, oh, this bean is of a different nature than another bean. So when we look at it, there is the characteristics that everything has the same nature. And this nature that we have is the nature of the mind itself. Everything that appears, if you look around your room and you see your room, is nothing but the fabric of mind. We talk about, to know all the Buddhas of the past, present, and future, perceive that all Dharma, Dhatu, nature, all phenomena is created by the mind. In this way, that which appears in there, the beans, they're all created, we could say, and using the analogy of the beans, and there's this glass jar that holds them. There's no bean really outside of that. It is all contained within that jar. The funny thing about it is that jar has no borders. It's infinite. So that there's nothing ever possible that could be perceived to be separate and independent from what is in that jar. Everything falls within there. Even if it says, I'm a separate being, I don't want to be with the others, I'm going to do that. It doesn't matter. This is an illusion. Whether it believes that it's outside the jar or it's inside the jar, and saying that, it is belied by the fact that it has this intrinsic nature of being part of the fabric of the mind. Give me 1 second. I've got a lot of sun coming in from I have like a 2-story window on this side. I'm going to move myself and so I can see you. I'm being blinded. Much better. Sorry for the interruption. Okay. So emptiness, we should think about in the opposite way that we have the notion of emptiness, which is that it is the mind itself. And in this way, it does not have characteristics. It is what creates characteristics. But because we call it characteristics, but that is why that the characteristics appear. It does not negate the reality of those characteristics to the extent that they appear within mind. But as we see them and understand them, they only appear within mind. So they have no separate existence. This is what the Diamond Sutra is pointing at with its emptiness and its conubrum in terms of speaking of in this way where it says that there's no material characteristics. That's why we call them material characteristics. We'll go into that a little bit deeper in a little bit. But today's lecture is one where I want to give you a just an overview of where we're going with all of this. And as we go in, we'll plug in a little bit of history and a little bit of doctrine and a lot of the Diamond Sutra. Another issue that comes up is the idea of no self. And this is one you'll see in the Diamond Sutra. They'll say, well, can the Buddha be known by his 32 marks? Is there someone there that is being delivered? And they're saying no, but that's why they can be delivered. But it's clear that this term anatman in Sanskrit is one that is referred to erroneously as no self, and I shouldn't have called it that. It is not self. There's a difference. Think about this. When we say no self, then that's inconsistent with even what the Diamond Sutra says, that's why we call them material characteristics, because that's a self. But we know that fundamentally there is none there. So what the Buddha was talking about when he said not self, it meant that self can appear within mind because it's part of the body of mind. But if we're looking for the fundamental realization of mind, Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, don't look at self. Don't look there to try to find the answer. So if you're sitting there going, I don't understand this, I'm trying to figure this out, and if you have a kind, benevolent person that is a well-known advisor, a well-knowing advisor, I should say, not well-known, they would say, you will never understand. But it has to be at the right time. To a beginner, then they just lose any interest in practicing. But in the right moment, when you say you will never understand, is because not self. This is not where we look. We do not look in the point of understanding. And it's a very funny thing about the Diamond Sutra, and in particular with the Mahayana Sutras with scholars, they have a difficult time with them in terms of trying to decipher them. And the Diamond Sutra is probably at the top because it cannot be answered in a scholarly way. And it's very interesting if you ever read doctrinal level papers. They even make schematics and looking like a mathematical equation in terms of trying to understand this. And the philosophers, they do the same to try to do this. And so they make their charts and everything else. It's very interesting because it reminds me of the Abhidharma, which is a very, very part of the Tripitaka, and the Abhidharma, Abhi meaning the highest, and the highest Dharma, it creates a schematic of mind. And in the schematic of mind, it says this is why these things appear. But it doesn't really get to the essence of it. It sees everything as real. But when you get to the Yogacara school, the Yogacara school sees everything as consciousness, and says it's the mind-only school, which is getting closer to that. The Madhyamika school, then, with its two truths, says there's this apparent reality, what appears, and then there is an absolute reality. And when Nagarjuna was asked about which one is the real one, then he does not answer, because it is in this way. The same thing happened, very interesting, in the Vilamakruti Sutra, where Manjusri was asked to describe this, and he said it cannot be described. And so then they asked Vilamakruti, what is your take on this? He didn't say anything. And it spoke volumes. It just simply exploded that sutra and cut it up into tiny, tiny pieces with its deep prajna paramita wisdom, and this wisdom even beyond that, as that one simply understands that this is the storehouse of the Tathagata, the Tathagata Garbha. So we begin this way. If I do not give you this primer, then it's difficult for you, if you have not read the Diamond Sutra, to make any headway with it. But that's not bad, because it is, as I had mentioned, a Rubik's Cube, a puzzle that you cannot solve. It doesn't mean that it's not solvable. It's just not solvable by way of words and phrases. We nevertheless have to use it, just like Santha said. We have to use these words and phrases, but with the understanding that it's not self. So the self cannot fathom this. We have to accept the ultimate reality. Now, here's the part that's difficult about the ultimate reality, is that what you think is the ultimate reality, and you look around your room and you see things and say, okay, this is my world. It's not real. It's an illusion. But we are been so good playing our part for life after life after life after life. We're really, really good. All of us should get an Academy Award Oscar for our role as impersonating the Tathagata, not self. But yet we still think that this is self. It is not in this way. The Diamond Sutra, by its process of what they call negation, negates all of these things that we hold to be the structure of our world. If we enter and study the Diamond Sutra sincerely, it can break down those notions. It can bring you to this this point in time in which, in fact, is no time, simply the present moment. Master Sheng Yen used to say, the Buddha is in the present moment. Very interesting, because as we look at this and we see it, there is a philosophy aspect that's called the arrow. I don't know if anybody took a philosophy class, but they talk about an arrow in flight. But if you cut down infinitesimally the point in time of that arrow's path, in fact, there's no path. There's no motion. It's completely still, completely. But because we cannot process moment to moment in this way, we lose the ability to be able to see that, to see the stillness in the moment. But right now, this moment, it's still. This moment's different than the one a moment ago when I said still. And again, different yet same. How is it same? Just appearing in mind, just an illusion. You don't believe me? Come back 100 years from now and see if I'm still giving lectures. If I am, I would suggest you run away. But this is the Diamond Sutra, this idea of not self. We can feel comfortable in saying, this is not real, this is not real, this is not real, you're an illusion. But we're really fearful of turning the mind's eye inward, which means turning it the other way and seeing that not self. What do you mean, not self? I mean, I'm Gilbert, and I worry about my health. I worry about my wealth. I worry about what people think of me. I worry about what I have and might lose, or what I don't have and want to gain. All of this defines me, right? Not self. I don't feel comfortable with that. So I have to devise a way in order to perpetuate myself. But it's not possible. The Diamond Sutra does this. It pulls you and forces you to see. It doesn't let up. It doesn't say, okay, that's enough for now. All the way to the very end of the Diamond Sutra, it is in this way. The final passage, the final verse, all that you should think of this fleeting world is a morning star, a dewdrop on a leaf, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a bubble in a stream, an illusion, a phantasm, a dream. Where is there self? It's saying all of this is an illusion, fundamentally empty, a not-ment, not self. So there's no place where we can literally hang our hat. But the trade-off is so incredible. If we look at the Diamond Sutra, and it says, if you recite 4 lines of the sutra, just 4 lines, I just did that, and I'll transfer all that merit to all of you, all of what I did. And then they say that this, the merit of this is immeasurable, far beyond if you had Ganges rivers, and each Ganges, the sands of, each sand of the Ganges River was another Ganges River, and all collectively, all of those are all those sands were treasure chests that we give to the poor. The merit would be great, but yet not as great as reciting 4 lines of the Diamond Sutra. And we go, well, that's kind of boastful. That's like, I don't believe that. I mean, could I just have one of those treasure chests? And you pass that up, and there's an ancient saying of pearls before swine. And it's not really insultive in the manner in which I'm saying, but it's like if there was a pig there and we threw all these pearls at it, they would sniff it and say, doesn't smell like food to me. So, if I put it in, it's not going to come out the back end. So I don't need it. But this is the Diamond Sutra presenting the incalculable value of studying it and passing it on to another person with great sincerity. We don't get that, not so. But if we really look and we really can let go of the idea of self, what is there? What's there is the mind. Boom, we run into the mind. So as we're studying the Diamond Sutra and we're looking at it and we're reading it and trying to fathom it, something very interesting happens. There's a transformation, but one has to look at it with sincerity and perseverance. And if one can do that, it can happen. One of my students, wonderful elder gentleman, began to read the Diamond Sutra. So I would see him in my classes on Monday nights, and he'd have a copy of the Diamond Sutra, always reading it before the class, always reading it. So I would come in and he'd have the Diamond Sutra there. It was just something that stuck to him. Finally, it penetrated to him. This gentleman was very interesting because he used to be a Christian pastor. And in Los Angeles, there's an iconic sign that you see a lot of times in these movies, especially the movies with the kind of murky scenes with gangsters and stuff, and it has a sign of a cross that says Jesus saves. Well, that was his church, and he was there, and so he had a firm belief. But the Diamond Sutra just shattered that. Now, I can't say he's not a Christian or a Buddhist or whatever, but the transformation in him was literally incredible in terms of that. In just finally, you could say in a snap of a finger, but how many times had he penetrated it? How many times did he try to penetrate it? And it came to him in this way. This is the let's say the esoteric aspect of the Diamond Sutra. Now, to me, I was studying Chi Gong, and as studying Chi Gong, I was studying a particular type of Chi Gong, which was called Wei To Bodhisattva Chi Gong. Is a Dharma protector. And one day the master said to one of the other students, "You need to get Gilbert a book on Buddha Dharma." And the student said, "What book? I mean, there's so many books. Which one?" He said, "Anyone. Just go get him a book on Buddha Dharma so he can read it." This was the book that he gave me. The Diamond Sutra and the Sutra of Hui Ning. Very interesting. So the first sutra is the Diamond Sutra. And I would open the book to read it. And something very funny happened. I felt incredibly light. Just opening the book, I felt like I was beginning to float. Now, I want to be clear, I was not floating. I had that sensation. Later on, people would say, "Gilbert, he opened the Diamond Sutra and he flew away." I didn't do that. I just felt very, very, very light, like incredibly, like what we say, refer to the freedom and ease of body and mind. But I hadn't done anything. I hadn't even started reading it yet. And I would close the book up, and then I would come back down, open it up. And so something very, very powerful was in this book. So I began to read the Diamond Sutra. This is so interesting. It's repetitive, but very interesting. And then I thought, something's here. It's like locked in, but I can't get to it. And in that way, then I wanted to know more. And I persevered for a long time. little by little, it gave up some of its wealth. Some of it still is troublesome to me and looking into it. But this is the respect I have for presenting the Diamond Sutra. We cannot simply just get in and start reading it. As you found out, when you read that chapter, were any of you enlightened? No. Were you confused? Probably. But that's a good thing. It's a good thing. So there was a lady in a class from London, England, earlier in the week, and she said, I'm confused. And I said, that's a good thing. It's good. Use the power of that confusion. That's important. You should not feel settled. You should feel not at disease or at ill ease, but that something isn't quite right and you want to solve it, but it is a sweet, like a candy stuck to the back of your throat. But you still want to swallow it, but it's still sweet. This is my introduction. We didn't get very far, but then again, I think we did. Sorry, because I ran a little bit over time, and don't leave too much time for questions, because I'm kind of restricted to an hour time. But if you have some questions, now's the time to ask them.
Yeah, please, anyone that has question, you can unmute yourself, raise your hand, and we'll call your name, or you can post the question. Yeah. So CMC does have an event at 2 p.m. So just to make a correction.
2 p.m. So it's 12 o'clock. Yeah. Okay. So you don't. So we can add. Okay, go ahead with the questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Kitty.
Hi, Gilbert.
Hello.
I wanted to ask you a question on these Vayapula Sutras. I'm actually reading the Lotus Sutra and studying it at the moment. And it's very, very exciting. And I have this great feeling of joy. And is it in the same line as Esoteric Sutra? Because I'm kind of on chapter 23 and looking at the medicine Buddha and reading about him in relation to chapter 10. And I'm so excited about it. And I can feel the sense of light and excitement, and as though I found the Buddha body. Is it the same kind of thing?
It is. Wait till you get to 2 more chapters down, and you'll actually get to Guanqing Pusa, known as the sound hearer, and that's Guanqing Pusa, I think, chapter 25. So that'll be something very good, and you're going to even feel more. What you're experiencing is what's called Dharma joy, and Dharma joy is an incredible feeling that of ease of body and mind simply by reading. And you use this, it's kind of like a surfer riding a wave, and you catch a really good wave and you can get on it, and you just go on it and just keep going and going and going and ride this wave as long as you can. But don't try to preserve or define this experience. Just simply use it. Just understand that this is a sensation, what we may call a bit super mundane, something that is there, but you cannot define it to your environment, like I'm hot or I'm cold. But there's this sensation of releasing, and you become attuned to it. This is a very good experience as long as you don't hold on to it. Again, this Dharma joy. I actually told my master Shifu that right before a lecture, and I'll give you the same advice he gave me. So, or not a lecture, a retreat, and I caught him at CMC on the, I think it was the third or second floor, and I went, Shifu, I have this feeling inside of me. I feel so good. It's like so wonderful, every time I read the sutra, every time I meditate. And Shifu went, yes. It's very funny because I could speak to Shifu in English and he could understand me, and there's no interpreters around, and we could have these conversations. Till later I realized he didn't speak English. But in any case, I was walking away and Shifu called me and he goes, Gilbert. So I turned around and he said, just don't get too much joy. And I went, that's strange. But then I understood it, that don't attach to the joy, but just let it, just like a surfer, just riding this wave. So it's good. It's a very good experience for you. I'm very happy that you have this, because this Dharma joy can lead to deeper and deeper understandings, all the way to the point of equanimity, where everything you see has an equal status, equal mind attention, and it's more result then. So good for you. Okay, next question.
Susan. Susan, you're muted.
Okay, got it. Right, I have read some of the sutras, and I've also experienced transmission of lineage from a number of different masters. And what I have found, and I don't know whether I'm close or not, but I get a feeling that I could describe as being in balance, in a center of nothing, and is actually just extends. And it's really easy to get because you just stop trying. You simply decide to be there and it becomes what you are. And it's not a mental thing, because you're not actually experiencing, it's almost like an experience of nothing. If you, one way I would describe it is it's the very central balance point of yin and yang, and there's nothing else. You're just there. And there's a very great stillness inside.
This kind of experience, the ancient masters would say that you should carry it out. And then they said, but what if I can't do that? And they say, pick it up and open the door and throw it out. And I'm not saying this in a irreverent term for you. I really respect your effort and your practice, and perhaps it was fortuitous that we've now come to together. This type of an experience still belongs to the unified mind, and I really thank you for the question, because it's a good one, and there's still the aspect of something experiencing something. The Diamond Sutra is exactly where you should be at this point, and going over and over and over until all senses of self or a higher self are exhausted. In the realization of mind, there is no semblance of self. That self is imposed on as an appearance on mind and nothing else. There's no words that can describe that, but you were honest enough, and you're doing this in a way in which is important. It's important for all the people that are listening in. But I really want to encourage you, because you are there. You're at the gates, but you've got to go further. You've got to burn the self out, and the same eye that you use to see everything else in a state of equanimity, you have to turn that onto that self, and call that self out. Now, the self at this point is not a self that one could look in the mirror and go, Gilbert, you have to go. All right, I'll go. It's not that kind, because now it is the self of everything around you. So when it's hiding as a transparent film over the environment. So wherever you look, you cannot see the self, but it is there, and it's superimposing itself over the perception of mind, and it will look back and going, we're doing a pretty good job, right? Get out of here. You got to go. You have to use the sophistication of your practice. What Shifu said, the subtle wisdom, very, very subtle wisdom to eradicate the sense of self. How do you do that? Is that you sit very, very, very quietly, sincerely in your meditation. No thought, in the present moment, complete awareness. But your awareness now, you spread it. Just keep spreading it. And if, kind of like Einstein's theories in terms of space having some kind of an effect, as you're spreading it, if I had something a little bit better, I could do it. But as you're spreading your awareness like this in the matrix of the mind, you will feel a slight deflection. Even though there's nothing there, you can still feel something that's bending and moving. That is the self. It's the self. To get to where you're at is an accomplishment. But don't sell it short.
Okay.
It will be there, whether you've had realization or 10 realizations or 100 realizations, keep going. Never think that, or if somebody had conferred upon you transmission, good, very, very good. But that makes you even more responsible to go further. And so you have to feel this very subtle movement of the self. There's I did a lecture a while back. You could find it in my group. Maybe Senta can give you a reference to the one of the Master Mahabua, and the sense of at the ultimate end, what is still there. Maybe she can find that. I strongly recommend you tune into those lectures, because they will help you immensely in terms of the practice, because you're like right there, but you've got to pursue it. Okay, hopefully the analogy might help you. Just that sense of movement. You're not going to see self at all. You're just going to feel something, but you have to amplify the mind in a relaxed way, and so that it can feel any kind of a sensation or movement in the mind. Just like a spider sitting silently on a web knows if something moves over on a far corner of the web, it is aware of it. Okay?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay,
Simon
keep
has
going. You're doing very, very well. Okay, next question.
Yeah, Simon has a question.
Go ahead.
Hey, Gilbert.
Hello.
I had a question on the equanimity part. Just again, in simple layman's way to understand it, does it imply that I guess one should be comfortable with extreme joy as well as sort of extreme distress? And I guess, if you still have a desire for one thing over the other, does that desire ever go away? Like wanting to kind of have extreme joy versus wanting to avoid extreme distress. Does equanimity mean like that goes away, or does it mean that you sort of sit comfortably with kind of wanting those?
This sensation of upika, I shouldn't say sensation. It's not a sensation. It's mind at rest. When the mind is rest, the ancients said it's neither sacred nor profane. The mind is just simply at rest. You see in the Buddha statues, they don't have a big grin like, I got it. Or they don't have a scowling face. They have a face of sublimity. comfortable. This sublimity is the mind that has no interest in anything, no interest in any need. This is important. So when you sit, you don't have an interest, I want to get, or I want to put out, or even in your everyday life. You just simply see the things as they appear. Doesn't matter. Yesterday I had a strawberry. The strawberry tasted very wonderful. No, it's very unusual fruit because it has seeds on the outside of it, not on the inside. And it has a very sharp, sour taste, but sweet at the same time. Then I put that down. I had 4 strawberries. That was enough. I only bring it up now to show you that that's just the way it is. So one can experience life, and if one is waiting somewhere, I had to wait yesterday for a vaccination, and I'm waiting in my car. I don't have a problem. It just is that moment. So everything you bring it in accord, and you see in every moment Pratika Samapada. And in Pratika Samapada, we see that everything is impermanent. So the joy will not last, but the sorrow will not last. We just see things as they are. So we don't try to amplify joy. The joy that the one person had, this Dharma joy, is of a different nature. It is. That's why Shifu said to me, don't be too joyous, because then it shifts over. But in this higher state of upeka, everything just is as it is. So just kind of practice to regulate yourself. So if this is bad here and this is good, just put yourself right there, right in the pinpoint of time in this present moment. Okay.
So next is Mark.
Okay.
Hi, Gilbert.
Hey, hello, Mark.
I always take your modernized words, the mind with the right view, but now
Yes.
you also link to the Dharma Sutra, which today you talk about the emptiness, not self. When we try to using your mind with the right view, compare with the Dharma Sutra on the emptiness and the no, not self, what's their relationship? When we try to, should we recognize there is a direct relationship, or the mind also create the emptiness, not self, or there's a different angle from the Dharma Sutra to explain your mind on the right view? And how do we, are they the same or are they not the same? So when we practice, should we just follow your guideline, or can we also utilize the Dharma Sutra on the emptiness and the not self?
As Red Pine said that I quoted him in the beginning of the lecture, this is the body of the Buddha. Emptiness, it is a concept. Everything that you have mentioned is a concept. It belongs to samsara. Samsara belongs to mind. Ultimately, it is in this way that the notion of emptiness, the notion of ignorance, notion of sacred or profane, all of them are conceptual. All of the sutras that I had talked about, the Vayapula sutras, the Lotus Sutra that was there, all of those are conventional, conceptual ways with the practice, but they all are consistent that they are pointing to the Buddha mind. The Diamond Sutra forces you to look at it. It doesn't give you any verses, any fancy prose, anything. It just says it is this way, but there's an uncomfortableness because we cannot understand that. So we have to find a different way to be able to decipher the puzzle. The way that we decipher the puzzle is go directly to the maker, the body of the Buddha. And so keep looking the body of the Buddha. And when I say look, we just simply are in harmony with that. Every moment, in the present moment, we're in harmony with the body of the Buddha. We just maintain that. The longer you can maintain it, the more that the Buddha will be present in the present moment. So don't get caught up in the labels of emptiness or whatever else. They're all Vayapula. They all are addressing the issue of the intrinsic Buddha nature, the ekayana. Ekayana is the single mind. This is one of the most important aspects of the Mahayana, was this notion of ekayana. It is not separate from the Madhyamika school, Yogacara, Abhidharma. All of those schools still have to look at things in this way. They may interpret them a little bit differently, but in the Mahayana Sutras, especially in the beginning from the Prajnaparamita Sutras, they all refer to this just as single mind. All of the Chan masters refer to just this mind. Sometimes they'll say just this mind, but if people are caught up with that, then they will say no mind. It's no mind. Or Hui Ning, speaking of Wu Nian, and Wu Nian, no thought, but in fact it is thought. And we'll get into that a little bit later too, in terms of that, okay? And thank you, Angela, for the ekayana, this very, very important term. Okay, next one. Anybody else?
Any more questions? Okay, Robert.
Go ahead.
Mark raised a very good question, and I had the same question, and finally I came to, maybe I don't know if I can use the word reconcile. It seems what Diamond Sutra is trying to use a negative way of describing emptiness. And 2 weeks ago, Gilbert, you used the example in Bristol, the two mind. One side is with an M and the heart and the donut. And actually, that is the same message that Diamond Sutra is trying to say. Because this side, the diamond, it is so perfectly shiny, polished. It is a mirror, it's an ultimate mirror that reflects everything, which is your left side of your mind. It is a perfect mirror that there's nothing it doesn't reflect. And this emptiness is almost like, the reason it encompasses everything. Gilbert, you always say, mind is everything. Yes, of course, mind is the perfect mirror. In fact, saying it is perfect is already wrong. It is, if you try to imagine it's not even right. If you try to say this is a perfect mirror that can reflect anything, so it's and all these things that's showing up in the mirror is all fantasy, is all image, is all illusion. So whatever show up in your mind is whatever showing up. You're looking at the mirror. You're just looking at whatever is reflecting. And the mirror, and this perfect mirror can reflect anything in the entire Ganges River and the sand and everything. So what Diamond Sutra is saying so far, I mean, Gilbert trying to explain to us, is the same thing of right view. Is trying to know mind. And we can never know mind because I mean, we are mind, but we are that little m, and that little m hopefully eventually will be the mirror, but we are not there yet. So we're just trying to investigate. So I don't know if my so-called attempt in reconciliation make any sense.
Almost. The thing about it, and that's good. And this is what he was referring to, is that if we have a method, and the method is here, it's projected on mind. So when we bring up our method, we project it on mind. We think that this meditation is over here looking at the method, but in fact, it is not. The way, and when we do it erroneously, we perceive ourselves to be holding the method. But in fact, when it's done right with direct contemplation, mind is just simply looking at mind. This method or whatever is there just eventually just becomes absorbed, including the one that is meditating. So these are kind of examples of how to see with direct contemplation, how we see it, so that we can get away from the idea that I am meditating, I am experiencing this oneness or unified mind or whatever, so that there is a literal self-absorption that's there. That self-absorption is a major realization in the practice, and that's what Robert's working on. Just keep working on it, and he's working that Rubik's Cube to try to get there and to see this. This image of the method is just mind as well, or we could say no mind. But yeah, this is kind of like what you should be doing. I think that's all the questions we can do. I'm sorry, Angela, for going overtime, but as you can see, the questions are just really incredible. I really thank you for your questions today. They were very helpful on many levels, from beginners to more advanced people. And if I can give that little tweak there to take you there, to inspire a beginner, and to those who are farther along in the practice, such as Susan, those are good questions, and they come at the right time, and so this is how the heart works. No, even if it comes up with a jar of beans analogy. So in any case, we will see you. Very important. Next week, I do have a class. There was a mix-up in the schedule for a while and a change, and now I'm giving 4 lectures in a row. So next week will be the second lecture. So it'll be Valentine's Day, so we'll all be together for that. But we'll release you to your loved ones later on. Okay? So join palms.
Thank you, Gilbert. Val.
Amitofo.
If anyone has more questions, feel free to email to CMC, and then we can address to next time. And also, I'll post Gilbert's blog, and so anyone has more questions can ask Gilbert directly. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Angela.